Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. So glad that you could join today's Social Gastronomy in Practice session, where we unpack and discuss social gastronomy models that exist within our community, with the hope that someone out there listening might, want to multiply the best practices and implement in their local communities. So my name is Nsungwe, and our guest today is the amazing chef, social entrepreneur, and co-founder of Gastromotiva, David Hertz. We're so excited to have you today, and we look forward to learning in depth about the model of Gastromotiva. So the session will be recorded for the first hour, and then we'll have the remaining 30 minutes where we'll have a Q&A session. And please feel free to, ask for any clarifications and any questions that you might have during those 30 minutes. So to kick off the session, David, what does social gastronomy mean to you?
So good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to everyone. I'm David Hertz. I'm in Rio de Janeiro, where I live. I'm at Refeitório Gastromotiva. It's a project of Gastromotiva, Food for Soul, and food journalist called Alexandra Forbes from Brazil. I'm very excited to be here, and it's amazing to think of social gastronomy meaning nowadays. I guess I've been hearing and talking about social gastronomy since 2004. And over there, for me, was how gastronomy can be a source of social businesses to put that practice into the gastronomy world, which is training, which is delivering better conditions for people in the gastronomy field. But when you ask me this today, the picture that it came to me, it's the circular economy. And why do I say that? I think we are creating a virtuous circle of solidarity, of connectivity, of possibilities. We are going from a conversation that is always been about the problems, and at social gastronomy, we are talking about solution, about regenerative ways of looking at food on the lenses of promotion in equalities, equities. And for me, I always see the future of gastronomy being partly connected to environment, but mostly connected to people. And once we understand that people, not us as consumers, and this I learned with slow food, but as co-creators of the food system, then I think social gastronomy comes with an addition of looking more with empathy, with gratitude for everyday actions which relates to food.
That is amazing. Thank you for that. And I always love this question because social gastronomy, it means so many things to people, but then at the end of the day, it's always the similarities. It's about people, it's about food, and it's always interesting to know, what people think or what social gastronomy means to people. And I couldn't help but think, wow, you've been working in this space since 2004. And I only knew about social gastronomy last year. So it's very important that we have these spaces, to just learn from each other and to share our journeys and best practices. So now, before we go into the model, I think it's important that we understand the why. Why did you start this project? Why was it important that Gastromotiva, comes into existence?
It's important that you mentioned 2004 because for people that don't know Latin America or never been around this space, the professionalization of hospitality starts in the 90s. We have the hotels, but we never had the culture and the professionalism at restaurants. Restaurants in our areas were always, educating people, bringing capacity building, because you cannot count with this with the government. There are no programs, and it's all learning by doing. And I was part of the first class of culinary skills in Brazil. And that means a lot, because the capacity building that I got at the university was Euro-American centric. And another point of view is that in Brazil, we never valued as much our culture. We were people looking at the culture ahead. So I got this understanding when I went to the food market. I worked on a cafe in the wealthiest street of Brazil, and I wasn't happy, and I was asking myself for purpose. And then I went to a favela, which we never go in Brazil, slums, we are afraid of it. We hear that there is violence, there are drugs everywhere. It's not only vulnerable, but a very violent place. And once I went for the first time, I realized that even though they have all the problems related to real estate and to infrastructure, all these people ended up in a favela because they were in search for possibilities, opportunities, job opportunities. And I was aware that I had the privilege to go to a university which was very expensive in that time, probably more than $1,000. And this is impossible for someone that lives, that comes from a poor background. So I understood that my mission in life was kind of like share all the knowledge I learned, but also to learn with people all the social knowledge and aspect of culture that I never would have access for it. So it's been Gastromotiva is a place that gave me the space to co-create solutions using gastronomy as a strong tool for people to find their talent, to find their passion, and to go for opportunities. And I say that nowadays we understand that in all the programs we do, and I will share with you, it's all about creating empowerment, it's all about creating belonging and economic autonomy, And that for me was the thing that I did until today. And on the other hand, and the other head that I got since that moment was to promote social gastronomy, to really advocate for social gastronomy all my life. And we've been doing this since 2004 as well. So it was always confusing, the vision of social gastronomy and the work that Gastromotiva always do, which is the practice, is the action. But when I realized in 2019, being part of the movement, talking about social gastronomy all over the world, I think we got more mature in the field. A lot of chefs since 2014, 15 also started to work not only with the environment, but the people around them, the communities around them. And I think with COVID, everything changes. Everyone, everywhere, delivered meals. Chefs, most of the chefs, they kept their restaurants open in order to support their employees. So I think there is a shift after COVID on the field of social gastronomy. And my mission, I guess, nowadays, in Gastromotiva and the field of social gastronomy is to share the best technologies we have and to co-create collective impact in the orders of the communities we are. And today we work in more than 130 communities in Brazil. And I can share with you more that. But as you mentioned, why this project started? Because I had a dream and I had the resources and I had the contacts and the access, but I turned into service. And I think that goes along with Gastromotiva. But I think another question is, Why do we continue? Because we already went bankrupt almost 3 times. And I say we continue because there are people in need, and that's why the model never changed. It adapted to new realities, and I can share with you if you think it's important that.
Yes, please. I have so many questions from that, but I won't answer them until after we have gone into the model, because I know that we're going to, find a lot of answers to our questions there. So now I think it's time for us to go into the model. Could you tell us what the model of Gastromotiva looks like on a day-to-day level? Could you deep dive now into the model?
Okay, so I will share a presentation that we worked at Gastromotiva with our communications team, and they did an excellent job. So I just want to share this presentation. Can you see that?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, so I like to start with this photo because Anna, who we are seeing here, she lives in Rocinha. Rocinha around the world, it's I think one of the most emblematic pictures of the favela, because they have the best view of one of the most impressive beaches in Brazil, but they are the most populated one in Brazil. I guess it's 180,000 people who live there. And there is a life of its own where Anna lives. But Anna is one of a kind. She is a person with this beautiful smile. And since the beginning, she learned with her grandmother, who was one of the first people to move there, the wealth that there was in that community. And she naturally became an activist and a leader, but she found herself, her place of communication with the community through Gastromotiva. And, as I mentioned before, everything we do and we co-create projects now, we more than ever, we co-create projects with the communities, but now with partners as well. We are looking, what drives us is equity, is the promotion of human rights, and that's very connected to social gastronomy, and social inclusion, which in Brazil and in Latin America, it means a lot, the economic inclusion, where human rights is to understand the identity and the history of the culture. We never imagined when we started that we will face working with hunger one day. We, in our model, always had capacity building. But in 2016, with Massimo Bottura, we replicated his model that started in Milan as a legacy for the Expo Milan, that was all about food. We shared the theme, the dream of bringing Refeitório Ambrosiano, the first one, to Brazil to become the legacy of the Olympics. And it happened, it worked out. It was one of the most crazier projects that we did because we didn't have time, resources. But the model is that you have a chef cooking for people in need. Most of them live in the streets. And for most of these people, they have only one meal a day, and that would be a refeitório. But here they are served with dignity. And then when I say hunger is a very serious problem, because we started to see the faces of hunger every day in our organization. Before, we were very safe. Our courses were inside culinary schools, gastronomy schools, and we were, in our walls. But with Refeitório, it's like we created our own walls full of light so people could have that meal safe. And then we started to see the numbers, because when you face, we always do, especially nowadays, a diagnostic, I don't know if that's the word, but we go research on what we're doing and what's the project. And today, if we take Latin America, where social gastronomy is strong, there is 131 million people living in hunger. But in Brazil, We have 33 million people in extreme hunger. The size of hunger in Brazil is 55% of populations, is 115 million people. And we divide that hunger into two levels: extreme hunger, moderate hunger, and a less severe hunger. I don't know how we can translate this into English. The first hunger is the one that is not nutritious, is not connected to facing like the extreme hunger if we're gonna have meal the next day. A mother, most of those people in 33 million, the number is impressive because out of the 33 million people who are hungry, 70% come from the Black community and indigenous community. 50% are solo mothers. 5.5 million are children. So what's the future we are creating in the country that in 2013 was out of hunger, out of the map of hunger, and now it came back with a more severe numbers and distribution of wealth. And due to all researches we read, the main cause of hunger is unemployment, which is why Gastromotiva acts to promote income generation. Another fact that we know now is that in Brazil, we waste 8 times of the size of hunger. And waste has always been, since Refeitório, a place fighting food waste that we started to deliver, to address, and then it becomes part of our way of acting. So now I'm gonna go into the model. We worked very hard to get to this model. So the first one, I guess, is human development. It's about what I mentioned to you, empowerment and belonging. It's not about technical. Let's try to support people on how to cook or how to become an entrepreneur or how to make a kitchen. It's not about that. It's about how you can become a professional and a more free, I would say, human being, free in the way of making your own choices, being proud of who you are. So there is no transformation, which is we have a motto, food that transforms, if there is not an inner transformation. So that permeates any project we will do. Income generation. So today we have more, I guess, than 8 projects related to capacity building. They are digital, they are connected to either a kitchen assistant, a cook, and the one that we started very strong after COVID is the social entrepreneur, the social cook entrepreneur. And this I can tell you a bit more later because we are focusing on that. Food safety, which is on the field of hunger, health, and food security. So since 2012, we've been working on food educational programs. And the way we do, we multiply through all the programs I mentioned. And then we always had a pillar of fighting food surplus. But now, since we entered the Amazon, which is a COVID story, we understand that we are working with climate and environment. So the way all these pillars work are in the projects, but around that, we have community mobilization, education, and the articulation of networks. So it's network management, a lot of what we've been doing. Towards social transformation, productive inclusion, the sense of communities, and integrated and sustainable development. So everything we do, we open this chart and we see, because there are opportunities every day, either when you talk to a sponsor, but either when someone that wants to co-create something and comes to us. And then that's the first thing we do. We open this and say, where does this fit? And if it fits, how would it fit? And if it fits and how it fits, who operates? Because maybe it's not. Maybe that there are others that can operate and we can plug in, which the scale of it and the effectiveness, I would say, can be much faster than to Gastromotiva to go there, learn and implement. So some of the numbers, we already provided meal for 3 million, almost 3.7 million people since 2016. Of course, all the numbers change a lot when we're talking about COVID time. We deliver more than 2.9 million meals. Sorry, the first number is the people we have been delivering, and more than 7,000 people trained at our programs. But I guess with this community, I feel very connected and trustful to share. Most of the things I'm sharing here, I already mentioned at other events with Social Gastronomy movement. But now what we understood with the kitchens that we created during COVID, just to get everyone on board, I spoke about the capacity building, delivering meals, and Refeitório Gastromotiva. How did we deliver all those meals? In Brazil and Mexico through Solidarity Kitchen, which means that we partner with social organizations that are in vulnerable territories, or with cooks that have been graduated by Gastromotiva. We were able to open 50 in 3 months of COVID by June 2020. But then after 1 year, we had the second wave of COVID. And then we decided as a goal to open 108. And within those goals to go and start in the Amazon. There was a calling for Gastromotiva to go to the Amazon. There was a big problem in Manaus because they didn't have any respirator tubes in hospitals. People died in avalanches in Manaus and the whole Amazon region. And we got the feeling that we had the capacity to replicate that. And after 3 years of that project, we understood that a lot of those 130 kitchens, they can become either a community development place or a social business. And this picture was taken a week ago. It's amazing because on the left side, you have Renata, who has this Eu Sou Gastromotiva, this t-shirt, and she mobilized more than 15 indigenous leaders and cooks in her neighborhood that is the first urban neighborhood in Manaus. And they created in 1 year a project to open a restaurant for local tourism. And this was a social technology that we started to, maybe not a social technology yet, but an initiative to see what are these kitchens that can become social business, but also to get the community together. And on this side, on my side, the person I'm hugging is the head of the organization that co-realizes all the programs there. So we listen to the community, we co-create together. They are linked to the University of the Amazon, the Federal University of the Amazon. So they have a lot of theory, they have teachers, they have something that Gastromotiva don't have, the time, the resources to invest. So we also select those communities with them. And on this side, the other collective of women with Angelita here, they created a project besides their Solidarity Kitchen to create a catering for their favela. Their favela is the most violent favela there. And the thing to apply to this program is that it couldn't be a one-person project or an association project, someone that has already an NGO. It needed to be a collective of people who live in that territory. And we learned a lot. They learn how hard it is to create a community amongst them. They learn how hard it is to dialogue, especially Renata, with all these leaderships from indigenous communities that all come from different ethnics and different regions of the Amazon. And the beauty of it is that after 1 year, they have a project, and we just launched next week. Now they are fundraising, and Gastromotiva comes with the seed money and the articulation of new actors. So we are we trust that this is the new model of the Solidarity Kitchens in Brazil. We are going to launch a new calling for projects, only for those ones who are already with us for more than a year. And we believe that we're going to support for the next 3 years 48 more projects like this. So the collective impact and the ripple effect of a project like that is our focus now, besides the educational program. And there are still kitchens that are going to deliver only meals, because not all the territories that we enter have the capacity to become a business. It's impossible when you go to a community like here in Rio de Janeiro, that is the most vulnerable community, is the garbage dam. It's almost a city, and over there, they need any support that can come. And with that community, with Pictet Foundation, we have another project, is how do we measure and how do we provide families that live in extreme hunger to, in 3 years, have healthy meals in their homes. So we are testing now what are the main projects that can scale and can be replicated all over Brazil through public policies. I think I spoke a lot about that, but what I was talking about our area of territorial development through social gastronomy. I spoke a lot about the professional training. Most of our training are for the kitchen assistances and for entrepreneurs. This year, we're going to train 3,500 people. More than 3,000 is digital, but it's from all over Brazil. We still distribute meals for free. Our goal this year is to provide 1 million meals all over Brazil. Today, we are working in 33 cities, all the regions of Brazil, in 9 states of Brazil. We still have the food bank here at Refeitório. All the food that we receive and we don't use at Refeitório, we share with local organizations in the city of Rio de Janeiro. As I mentioned to you, we have a nutrition-focused project like we are doing at this community, which is called Garamacho, and these projects fighting food surplus and food waste. I guess I spoke a lot about the Solidarity Kitchens, but I'd like to bring these so we can see the diversity of people. Today, we have kitchens that work only with solo mothers, others that are led by the Black woman community, so they serve only the Black community. We have 3 indigenous communities in 3 states of Brazil, and that is amazing because they are recovering their ancient recipes. So it's the diversity that is rich, and it's the clusters that creates amongst them all over Brazil. We connect the 3 indigenous kitchens, we connect those ones that are talking with solo mothers, but now our main moment is to find out which one of them can be economically sustainable without depending the money that Gastromotiva invests on all of that. For every kitchen, we invest from $20,000 to $30,000 a year. They deliver 15,000 meals in their community, and they have access to all our programs on capacity building for their kitchens and for the entrepreneurial, social entrepreneurial programs. And just one thing that is important, as you see our packaging, they are 99% recyclable. They cost 3 times more as a normal, a more cheap and non-disposable packaging. The meals we do is like Refeitório meals. They are all healthy. We have nutritionists in every region of Brazil working with our nutritionists here. Most of them are volunteers. So it's not, again, what we learned with Massimo about giving food or about giving soup, but it's about bringing dignity through meals. And this is kind of like the differentials that we have been hearing from our sponsors. It's adaptable anywhere in Brazil. It has the potential for income generation. So these community kitchens, they are not depending only on Gastromotiva. The outreach of the community mobilizations that the kitchens do in their territories, the nutritional and operation monitoring, the social impact, which I'm going to share with you how we measure, and this productive inclusion, so they can be, let's say, they have income generation throughout the program. And here is how they are in Brazil in all their inequalities. But I will show you a video that showcases the measurement, and I'm going to open for questions. So I just need to share this, open this, and it's quickly. I know I'm taking a long time to share. Compartilhar tela, quick time player. We created this dashboard so we can see how are the kitchens doing, how many they are serving each kitchen. We make samples of them, around 2,000 people per time. You can go in the kitchen and see where they are located. And then you go here and you see how these beneficiaries are in the system, if the hunger is moderate, is strong, which, like I mentioned a lot about the indigenous communities, so which ethnic they come, how many are the Black community, and this is helping us to understand the impact we can create. And here is how they have access to the public services of the country. And you see that most of them, they are regular or bad. They see the public services very away from them, or like here, lazer, which is well-being. Only 14 of them put well-being into their daily basis. I think that's mostly what I wanted to share about the model. And I think we can go back to you, Nesunge.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. It's just amazing to see how much the model has adapted. And I like how you mentioned that the model remains the same, but it just adapts to the changing times, during COVID and everything. And I think that's very important, to have a model that is able to adapt and just go with the flow of the times. So now, David, with the work that you're doing, it's obvious that it comes with challenges, right? So what have been some of the challenges that you've faced, and how have you been able to overcome them? What have been the learnings?
I think I'm not going to start with the obvious, which is funding, okay, to all of us. But I want to talk about culture, internal culture of our organizations. As you mentioned, we are very flexible. As I mentioned in the beginning, you almost bankrupt 3 times, and Nikki was part of that moment. And the adaptation that we have needs a team that is flexible. And our team has been going through a lot of changes, because when we had COVID and we're able to everyone inside Gastromotiva to go to the same place. Okay, we don't do this here, we don't do education, we only do solidarity kitchens. We went in this flow that you mentioned. But then with COVID getting to an end, thanks to God and to medicine, we needed to reinvent ourselves. And to reinvent yourself, you need to reinvent the culture. The inside out, we had to bring new talent, new kind of talent. for us to go for a solidarity kitchen that only deliver meals, but now going to social business, it needs to change the mindset of the whole organization, which for me is easy because Gastromotiva started wanting to become a social business. So I'm just back to the past. The future is back to the past. But the team here was either connected to education or to solidarity kitchens. And that changes the whole thing. And that creates uncertainty. But I think we went through something, everyone questioning about how much to deliver, where is this the organization that I want to be, how much social this will continue doing once we need to also start thinking on business, because our model is only by donations of corporates or individuals, and this is not sustainable. We all don't want to go for the fourth time bankrupt. And with the end of COVID, donations dropped in Brazil. The political situation, the economical situation, it took everyone back to their focus, you know. Hunger, now on the macro level, hunger is not more the issue with the companies, because the government of Lula is saying that they are going to do, their motto is like to end hunger again. So they say, okay, let's let the government deal with this. And that's why we had to create these solidarity kitchens as social business. It was the view, but it's also to become sustainable. So those communities keep eating, because these social cooks, they still need to eat. So I'm talking about two things. One is the moment of the country and everything that implies. Second is the internal culture of Gastromotiva. And I mention internal culture because it's very interesting. Now with the ESG in the companies are still lost on how they are going to apply especially the S, which is the work with the community. It's very different, the ESG in the Southern Hemisphere than the Northern Hemisphere. In the Northern Hemisphere is equity inside the company, women's in job in big locations, the volunteering. But in the Latin America, you have another component for the S, which is the external community, the external neighborhood of a factory. And this is very hard to measure. There are no, every company is going to measure this to the board. So they are trying to find their way. And we saw the measuring moment that I saw, the measurement video that I just showed to you. It's like I can provide a service now for companies. And the organizations now, they need to have we need at Gastromotiva to be much more working on compliance, on governance, on processes. And this also needs to change the culture. So we've been working really hard on that. We created a governance area. We have consultants on that. And we brought a new leadership, because I'm an entrepreneur. Everywhere I go, I create a new idea, a new project. And it's not my main talent to manage people, to manage the organization for the size that I have become. So we have new executive director that come from the hospitality business, that changes again the leadership. So it's a lot of internal challenges and external challenge due to the time of the companies and the Brazil. The second thing I already mentioned is its income generation for long-term partnerships. I can say that Gastromotiva is in a healthy moment, but we are attracting again those donors that want to support this kind of social business, attracting new kind of investment, which is impact investment. So it all needs a new narrative. We need to relaunch the brand. We need a whole movement towards branding. And you see, one thing is connected to the other. When there is an external problem or challenge, there is an internal challenge, an internal problem. But I say this is the challenges. And I think a third challenge is how you turn an organization that always been focusing on individuals and now focusing on entrepreneurs, especially with the Solidarity Kitchen, to also add a component of communities. We have communities. We are an organization of communities of chefs, communities of alumni, communities of volunteers, and we are investing in an area of community. And that I must say that is, I think, one of the biggest learnings of the time that I was working in the social gastronomy movement team, because we are always thinking about communities that we are now. We are a big community of social organizations related to food. And I realized that we had that capacity and that need to bring this inside Gastromotiva. So we're investing in a new team of impact, which is community building, community management, and community development.
Thank you for that. And I really love what you mentioned, about reinventing and just reinventing the culture, bringing on a new team, because I know, maybe when, especially if you look at small businesses, the first thing they'll think of when they, hit a roadblock is, okay, time to, pack our bags and leave. But how seldom do people think, oh, I should probably bring in new people, I should reinvent the model and things like that. And I think that's a very important point that you've addressed, and brought on board. So now, looking at someone that would like to replicate the Gastromotiva model in their local community, what advice would you give to them? Like, what is a step-by-step process that you would say, to follow?
I'm happy you mentioned Peter Block, because one of the first sentences I spoke in the beginning of this conversation came from the book that I got as a present from Charles, and I just read that book finally, and I read in order to bring this community aspect to Gastromotiva, and I thank him because he's been a great friend of the social gastronomy movement, and I access this knowledge through social gastronomy movement. I say is, first of all, there is no, in the times of today, I would partner with other organizations that are already doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. When I go now to the Amazon, the size of the problem and the challenge of the problem and the understanding of the problem, Gastromotiva cannot just go there and replicate, and I don't want to do this again anymore. It's very lonely. So I would say, try to find your peers, those that dream like you, but that complement you. Those that can bring, like, we have people here that, have been connected to Gastromotiva. Sandra, that is here, and we never had the time to chat, but now I know she's here and she's been listening, and finally she can understand a little bit more of the whole organization of Gastromotiva, and she's been replicating this in the US, in her city. Now she's coming to Rio, and I think listening and getting connected to others is very important. Secondly, you need to, it's not what you want. And I bring you a small story. We have a very wealthy person. She lives in Miami. We met in an event, and she said, I want to support your kitchen. And then she flew to Manaus, and she went and she visited her kitchen. And then she came back. That kitchen doesn't need meals anymore. They needed when COVID was dead. But then she came to me a month ago, and she said, David, my cause is children, and I want to support the school of that community. And I said, I don't know if they need something, but I'm going to go to Manaus and I'm going to find out what they need. And in the end, they need something related to that, but it's not the main thing they want or they need. So now I'm a bridge for a dream of two people. One is a need of a community and a dream of a community. and the willingness of one person that want to work with children and education. And I think being able to find that will is one of the things that we are here for. No one ever gonna sponsor your project the way you imagined, because they have other dreams, they have other needs, and they have other objectives, either in their lives and in their heart, especially individuals, because they could be connected to any cause. It doesn't need to be food. And you have your dream, your idea on how you can get there. And you need to find those combinations. But in the end, it's not about Gastromotiva. It's not about her. It's about the community. It's always about the community. It's like I never imagined, and I say that in my life I would work with hunger. And today I was just driving and I was getting out of my car and I said, I think I need to realize that now I am a spokesperson about hunger. It's hard to understand how do I get there. And then there is something that I found out, especially being able to be one of the people who visualize social gastronomy movement with so many others that are here today, that I, myself as a social entrepreneur, I need another place to work that is not Gastromotiva for my macro dreams. So I've been connected to a new movement in Brazil. It's the Pact Against Hunger. We aim to end hunger by 2030 and to have all Brazilians eating healthy food by 2040. And we are 40 co-founders. We just launched a campaign all over the country, a very, very, very big campaign, those very professionals on TV. And now we are working on pilots in different places. We are working which pilots are we going to work to change either a city or a state. And it's impressive because you learn so much around all those other leaders that you would never have access to, or business leaders or political leaders. Like I've been to Brasilia 4 times with this group of people, and I met 9 ministers already of this new government that are willing to work with social gastronomy. They get crazy when I show this video, you know, because we have something that the government doesn't have, which is the hearing of the community. And I would say, think big. It doesn't matter the size of your dream. You can do as in your organization with others where you can find your peers. And this is a collective dream to end hunger in Brazil by 2030. I had this compromise that I spoke here a lot to change the life of 10 million people by 2030. And that's why I wake up every day. What can be done at Gastromotiva? Now, what can be done at the Pact that I know I'm going to outreach those 10 million people? And then rest. I've been having more time for myself. I've been really taking care of time to myself. I'm enjoying a lot what I do after so many years of, you know, running. And I think you really have to take care of yourself because there's too much energy that we are involved.
That is so true. I mean, rest is you know, often the most underrated tip, but that's very important. And thank you for those amazing insights. And just to wrap it up, I would say that one, you know, partner with organizations, like you mentioned, listen and getting connected and be able to listen to the community and know that, you know, it's not about what you want, it's about what the community wants. And also surround yourself with a community of people that are doing similar work. And always remember to think big and take some time for yourself to rest. Thank you so much. Yes, please.
I just want to say, when I went to visit this Solidarity Kitchen in this community that this donor wanted me to go, this community is Manaus. You have the Amazon River. So you have to take a boat and get there in 20, 30 minutes. And when I went there and I started to kind of like ask a few questions in order to get something tangible so I could come back and share with this lady, and I recorded everything. It was interesting because I learned a lot there, because she said, I'm a teacher here. The other said, I'm a farmer. They are so proud of who they are and the talents that they have. She said, I work in the municipality of Manaus. So people in communities, they have talents, they have careers, they have probably much more knowledge of the land that we have. And we also need to be this bridge to our donors, to the companies, to the government, to remind them that it's not because a person lives in a place that is very vulnerable or they never left their land that they don't know the richness that they have inside of them or the richness of the community. You need to start from that. Then you go to what the community needs and wants. Because your second question is, why did you start this project? And one of the questions is, why you live here? Why do you skip living here? And they always know why they are there. They always know. They are there because that's their land, that's the ancestors, that's where their grandparents and grandfathers or mothers and fathers found a way to educate them. You know, it's so incredible. It's so incredible. It makes us that have so many access to the world, to this talk, you know, to feel very small, but also unique, you know. And I think this is what social gastronomy brings to all of us, is the access to be in places and talk to people that would never would if we continue, you know, in our own capsule of, you know, goals or transforming 10 million lives of people, you know. A little bit less, I tell myself.
No, that is very true. Thank you for sharing that. You know, it's true. I mean, we have to listen. We shouldn't go there to the different communities with that attitude of we know everything and we've come to solve your problems. And that's why it's important that we listen, and just going there with the attitude of co-creating and, you know, working with the communities. So thank you very much for sharing and for being here with us. We have come to the end of our session, our first session. So now we're going to go into the Q&A.